So perfect. Okay. So with technology as it is, when we stream from a Zoom meeting to Facebook, it always takes just a second to ensure the technology is working. So come on in, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us live. It is 8:30 a.m. in Colorado, where I'm at. And Brianne, what time is it for you in?
It's 4:30 for me in Germany, 4:30 p.m. So I'm really grateful to anyone joining live who's joining us in their morning. I know that's hard, but it's really lovely for me to catch this at the end of my workday. So thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, so that's why people are like, "Oh, I usually do stuff around lunch or whatever," and I'm like, "Well, we've got an interview in Germany today, so we're making it a little earlier." So excited for you guys all to be here. I'm thrilled to introduce you to Dr. Brianne Grogan. She is not only an expert in her field, she is one of my best friends in the whole wide world. She is just, I mean, her and I bonded. It's been a while, like 8, 10 years ago when I lived in Germany. I got to know her, and little did I know we would forge such a beautiful friendship. But Dr. Bri is not only a dear friend, I mean, that's why I love her so much, but she is a beloved and beautiful speaker to the pelvic health and pelvic issues that many women face that are not always disclosed or talked about. She is the author of Lady Bits. She also runs a podcast called Dr. Bri Talks on Lady Bits as well. So you can check her out on iTunes or any of the platforms that you use to grab your podcast from. Dr. Brianne Grogan is also a doctor of physical therapy. So she is an expert in her field. She's just not talking the talk. She is walking the walk. She is a beautiful human being. She has a million ways to help support women, including a free YouTube channel where you can access lots of healthy movement exercises and ideas to help keep you safe and help keep you living your healthiest life. So it is my deepest honor to have Dr. Bri here. So thank you, Brianne. Thank you so
Oh,
much for coming on and joining the. Yeah, we have quite a few people live now, and I will tell you all. Before we jump in and let Dr. Brianne kind of take the mic away from me, there is a bit of a delay between Zoom and our live stream on Facebook. So I will be looking for comments. If you guys have comments or questions, I will be looking at those down at my phone. I have my phone here so I can kind of monitor the two. So just know if you make a comment or ask a question, it's a little bit delayed. That's why I may not, say something to it right away. Other than that, I think we're ready to rock. Today, we're talking about intuitive movement. We have a lot of great stuff planned for you. This corresponds with the ninth principle of intuitive eating, all about exercising your body to feel the difference. So we talk a lot about mindful eating and intuitive eating in this group, and it's in perfect alignment, the conversation that Dr. Brianne and I are going to have today around intuitive movement. There's going to be a lot of parallels that you see between how we feed and nourish our body with food as we do also with movement. So Dr. Bri, did I miss anything in this introduction that you'd like the
no.
audience to know before we get started?
No, that was amazing. I'm so excited to chat about this topic, which is one of my favorite topics, because one thing that I want to kick off with, I guess, is that I think sometimes people get a little bit scared of exercise, or maybe, I mean, this is just me, maybe not anyone listening, but I kind of am not an athletic person myself. Like, I've never been an athlete. I've never been into sports or anything like that, but I do love fitness. So I'm going to say that there is a caveat. I do love movement and exercise now, but growing up and just in general, I don't identify as necessarily like a sporty person, if you will. And so sometimes maybe it can be like, oh, I don't want to talk about exercise. And if you're not maybe a person who's really into that kind of thing, but I want to keep this really, I want to make you really aware that this is meant to feel good and not be about hardcore gym stuff or like sports stuff, if that's not something you're into. So yeah, I want to kind of kick us off with that, is that this is a safe and comfortable place to talk just about feeling good, is what I want to talk about today. Feeling good and moving your body comfortably.
That is awesome. That's again in perfect alignment with what we talk about with food too. It's like it's not about militant exercise. And I know when I was in my early 20s, I was trying to control my body with food. I was a militant exerciser. I became a fitness instructor just to burn calories. And my body just really suffered as a result of that. And I've had to learn, along with intuitive eating, intuitive movement. So I'm excited for this conversation because that, knowing you and learning from you, Brianne, has just been an amazing way for me to take care of my own body. So I know the audience is going to really love what you have to share here. So why don't you talk a little bit more about the problems that you see women facing in the quote unquote exercise world? That intimidation that women feel at the gym, in general, that feeling of not being motivated or uninspired to work out. And just, we beat ourselves up, like there's so many women, and I know I was there. If we don't do the things right with exercise, we don't follow the 21-day program or whatever, militantly, then we've done it wrong. So share your thoughts on this to get us started.
Yeah. And I think that's a big thing that I see is people, like you're saying, they have a plan that they want to follow and it's somebody else's plan. And that's really sort of the opposite of intuitive movement. And while it's good to learn from other people, and it can be very helpful to have kind of a guideline and to get inspired, I really have a hard time with plans that you then inevitably, many people do fall off track and then they inevitably beat themselves up. So you just hit on that one for sure. I think another issue that I see with fitness and exercise is people are doing it because even if they're not following a specific plan or 21-day challenge or something, maybe they just haven't necessarily explored lots of, the different options there are for moving their bodies. And they just think, well, I should go to the gym because that's what you do to stay fit as an adult when you're not in sports or you're not in dance class or whatever. You go to the gym and go on the treadmill, and it's not inspiring to them. It's not coming from their soul. And so they're just slogging away, not because they want to, but because they have to, in air quotes. And that can be an issue right there. And another thing is sometimes people, maybe they feel a pull at the gym, for example. Maybe they love the gym. Many people do. And maybe they feel a pull to go toward a certain exercise class or the weightlifting area, but they do feel intimidated by some of the other people that are at the gym, for example. Again, gyms are certainly not the be all end all, and also many of us aren't even going to gyms at this time due to restrictions and lockdown, et cetera. But back in the day when we did go to gyms, there was a lot of, for me personally, kind of an intimidation factor when I would go to the weightlifting area, for example. But maybe your heart's calling you there. So it's just all these different things to kind of look at. Another thing bringing in my area of passion and expertise is pelvic health issues. And a lot of women, maybe they want to do a certain, or they think they should, in air quotes again, do a certain style of more intense working out, maybe running or something with a lot of jumping, that kind of thing. But then they leak. They have bladder leakage issues and they feel like they have to stand at the back of the class because they're leaking. They feel like they have to tie a sweatshirt around their waist because they've leaked, or they have to wear a pad or protection of some sort. So that can kind of take you off track of wanting to work out if you're having leakage issues, or if you're having injuries of any kind. You can get to the point where you feel like, you just don't know what to do because you either leak, you have bladder issues or that kind of thing, or you feel like your knee issue from long ago is getting worse, or your hip issues are getting worse and you just don't know what to do or even where to start. And you start feeling like, well, in order to do anything, I need to ask somebody what to do. Like I need to ask the trainer, but maybe it's expensive to hire a trainer, or maybe you just don't have time for that or whatever. And so then all of these things that I just mentioned can really throw you off track for even wanting to move your body.
Oh, yeah. And that resonates so deeply with so many of the conversations I've had with women. It's like they want to be able to move their body in ways that feel good, but for so long, and you said it several times, it's like they're shooting on themselves
Yes.
about what that has to look like.
Mm-hmm.
And so that creates this huge barrier in even getting out and going for a walk. And then you bring up this idea of around pelvic health issues. So many women have pelvic health issues. It's not really, I don't think, talked about as much as it probably could be, Brianne. I know that's one of your missions on this planet, is to bring this stuff to light so women know, that these pelvic floor issues are there, and they're also something that can be supported with intuitive movement, intuitive exercise, and the right type of, I guess, reconditioning to help support the strength of the pelvic floor muscles. And regardless if you guys have pelvic floor issues, like, this is still going to be a fantastic conversation, because the idea here is that we're moving intuitively, whatever that looks like. But we're just kind of navigating all these different obstacles that can come into play when a woman is trying to decide what kind of movement's best for her. Did I sum that
Yeah,
up okay?
absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, 1 out of 3 women experience bladder leakage at some point in their life. It may be mild, it may be more severe. And about 50% of women who've given birth experience some degree of prolapse, which is when the pelvic organs shift. They usually descend, feel like there's some heaviness or dragging in the pelvis. So those are just basic stats. There are other pelvic health issues as well, but I mean, that's a really big deal.
Yeah.
And you can avoid a lot of that when you do move intuitively.
So let's talk about that, Brianne. What is moving intuitively? What's your definition of intuitive movement?
Yeah, and I mean, I love that we just keep saying movement too, because again, kind of like I said at the
Yeah.
very beginning, I think it's really nice. I love reframing it as movement and not exercise, and it's just semantics, I guess, because I mean, if you're moving in a way that is to exercise, then I guess we could call it exercise, but I like to call it movement because it feels a lot less intimidating and a lot less of a chore. And that's really the definition, or my definition of intuitive movement. It's moving in a way that's going to nourish your body rather than doing something because you should, because you know you need to exercise. So it's basically learning how to tune in to your body and your needs, which are ever changing. And I want to be sure we touch on that today, because our needs are constantly changing as women throughout our life cycle, but even every month they're changing. So we have a 24-hour daily clock, but we also have a 28-day cyclical clock with our menstrual cycle too. That's something we really need to keep in mind. So just, reframing exercise as kind of a chore, or like, heaven forbid, punishment for what you ate the day before or what you didn't do the day before because you were feeling lazy. I know I keep doing the air quotes. That's always kind of annoying, but you know what I mean? I just hate those words. The thing is though, I've said them to myself. And so I know how prevalent those words are. I have beat myself up too many times because, oh, I'm so lazy because I took a day off yesterday. But actually, when you move intuitively, you end up better in the long run. You end up going forward faster when you actually listen to your body and give yourself that rest day when you need it. You're going to do so much better the next day or the next week than if you just kept pushing through and you're dragging butt, because you just kept pushing through because you weren't moving intuitively. So it's really, again, nourishing your body.
I love that. It's again so in alignment with the conversations we have around intuitive eating. It's a similar thing. It's about that inner core of trusting yourself and
Yeah.
listening to your body, turning out the external validation, the external noise, and really allowing yourself to come back to you. And that doesn't have to just do with food. It also has to do with moving the body. And the power of words, Brianne. Like, I don't like to use the word diet, even though nutrition, like, we could say it's just the stigmas that are associated with the word exercise can again bring in these ideas that it has to look a certain way, or it's connected to a certain story about what it's supposed to be. So movement, I feel, for a lot of women is just a bit more gentle, and I don't know, there's more room for interpretation to make it your
Yeah.
own.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, and to kind of bring it to food, and I know some things that you've talked about in the group and we've talked about together just kind of personally and stuff too, is this idea that I think it can be scary going into the world of intuitive movement, kind of like
Hmm.
intuitive eating, because you might fear, let's just bring it to eating, that if you just gave yourself free reign to eat anything you wanted, you'd be scarfing down the Oreos and that's all. But when you really think about it and when you really actually live that, it actually doesn't feel good to do that all the time. You actually wouldn't probably want to just eat Oreos all day. Or maybe you would for a day, but then you'd realize, actually, I think I want to do something else too.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with movement. It's the same exact concept.
Oh, I love that. It's just that beautiful bridge between the two.
Yeah.
So, can you share with us, I know you want to talk about today how to create or write your own movement prescription. So this is for any woman watching. What are the keys to intuitive movement? What do you share with women to help them start on this journey? Because it is scary. It is
Mhm.
scary, to think, oh my God, I can do this on my own. No, I can't. There's a lot of trust issues that we have with ourselves as women in general, but especially when it comes to food and when it comes to movement. So, yeah, can you share some insight on that with us?
Yeah, and I love it. I love the idea of people being able to write their own movement prescription, because it brings the power back to the person, to you, watching. And while again, it's good to have a trusted health coach or fitness coach or trainer or physical therapist or someone you're working with, or maybe a book that you love and you get some ideas from. Ultimately, you are your own guru. You are the one that's going to figure out and enact the plan. I mean, that's the key, is somebody's got to carry it through, and that's got to be you. And so the first step is learning your own preferences. I mean, that's the first key, is learning what you love, what you're called to, not just because the book said you were supposed to do this. Well, the book said I was supposed to start running or whatever, but I hate running, and sometimes people can learn to develop a love for things. I always like to say, date every form of movement before you find the one you're going to marry and the one you love. And then even if you do get married to that form of movement, know that you can absolutely cheat on that partner. This is like one
Oh
relationship where
gosh.
you can cheat on that partner. You can change your mind. You can change direction. But the point is, date around, try different things out, but just explore. And that's the first key for writing your own movement prescription, is think about, your preferences, the way you like to move your body. The music you like to listen to can actually be a fun one to kind of help you tune in if you haven't really explored different styles of movement much. If you like more driving music, you might be more drawn to more active classes or types of movement. If you tend to like more artistic, quiet, calming music, you might be more drawn to yoga. And these are just generalizations, but it can be helpful to get kind of a starting point. Just Again, just that basic awareness that actually what my preference is actually matters. Like, I actually can take that into consideration as I'm figuring out what I want to do for movement. I don't just have to do something else because someone else told me to do it. I can actually take my preferences into consideration. So that's the first step, is looking at your preferences. And then the next step, I would say, is basically learning about a little bit about your body. And I want to talk about cycles a little bit later. So let's just kind of put that, like, a pin in that a little bit, but learning a little bit about your body, if you have any injuries or issues, again, pelvic floor issues. If you do, there might be some types of exercise that, even if you're drawn to them, you might need to build up to them. So if you have prolapse, for example, pelvic organ prolapse, then you might need to actually put a pause on the running. Even if you're drawn to it, it doesn't mean you can't do it, but you need to work up to it. So you might need to experiment with different forms of movement. So it's kind of like looking at your preferences, but then balancing it with an honest look of actually where you're at right now in your body, as far as injuries or pelvic health issues, or even cycles of the month, which again, we can talk about a bit later if we get to that. Um, so those are sort of the basics, I think, kind of pillars of how we start going in that direction, how we start exploring, and then we have fun with it. And we start to experiment very gently and push our boundaries very, very gently. Because I think that weekend warrior syndrome is a real thing, where maybe we go all in on some form of exercise, like stand-up paddle boarding or kayaking or something like that. And we go for a 10-hour kayak on whitewater or whatever. And then we're so sore that we're thinking, I never want to do that again. And so it's the idea of kind of like experimenting gently and just having fun and going with the flow of it, and enjoying ourselves, and then keeping consistent with it too, if we find something we like. So baby steps, going slow and keeping consistent with it.
I
So
love
there's so
that.
much
Yeah.
more I could share with that, but that's a start.
Yeah, no, that's great. And it kind of reminds me of the principle we explored last week about respecting your body and not like we talked about, you don't have to love your body in this moment, but you need to start practicing self-acceptance through the practice of self-compassion. And I think that lends itself to what you just said. It's like we have to look at our health as we are today and just be present with our body, start to, we notice and witness injuries, prolapse, whatever it is that we're currently experiencing, and saying, okay, I can accept this. And I accept that I'm not going to be a marathon runner tomorrow, if that's our
Okay.
aspiration,
Mhm.
and that I can still appreciate my body where it's at and move it in the ways um, that I love, but also love me back
Yeah.
in a way. So I was that woman who I became a spin instructor just so I could torch calories and live in a smaller body. That was my whole aim for getting into fitness. But it's part of my story. I was ashamed of that for a long time, but it's part of my story. And now I realize the damage it did to my adrenal health. If I look at something in functional medicine, we look at kind of the way that our organs kind of work together. It really burned those organs out and lended itself to a lot of health problems. Do you see that with women that you work with, where there's that push militant exercise where it actually creates more problems for their health?
Oh, 100%. And
Yeah.
that was actually me too. I was a runner, and I would run every single day, no matter what. It didn't matter if I was injured. It didn't matter if I wasn't, it was first day of my period. Like, it didn't matter at all. I would run every day, and I'd feel very, very angry almost at like, strangely, when I'd see other people running on the road and I wasn't running, I'd feel very much like, why are they running? Why are they running? Like, I'd be kind of like, because I felt like I should be running, because it was this strange guilt thing. It really gets in your mind. And I felt like it wasn't a workout unless I had been running. And so it really took me a while to get out of that militant mindset of like, it has to be an intense activity in order for me to feel like it's moving my body and giving me health benefits.
Hmm.
I also know that I pushed myself to the point of adrenal fatigue with teaching fitness classes and also doing high intensity interval training. So hit intervals when my body just wasn't there. I was burnt out. I was working way too much. And yet I still pushed myself harder because I thought that I needed to. And so I think really the best thing to do, and this is a really important baseline for everything we've been talking about, is learning how to establish that trust in yourself and that just centered, kind of grounded presence in the moment. And I never did this back before I knew better. I didn't do this, but I do it now. And I try to, on a daily basis, literally just ask myself the simple question: what does my body want today? The other question that you can ask is, what do I have energy for today? It's truly the most loving question you can ask yourself, and it will give you so many health benefits. Is, what do I have energy for today? And or what does my body need today? And it can be very, very beautiful to actually put your hand on your heart. I think that you probably do this in your
Hmm.
work, right, Beth? Yeah.
Hmm. Oh
So
yeah.
literally putting your hand on your heart, as you already know from Beth, and so important to create a feeling of safety in your body as you are asking yourself this question. Because basically, again, you're writing your own movement prescription right here. So you're taking the role of the expert because you are. But in order to feel like the expert, you have to feel safe. And so doing that nice hand on your heart and that nice slow exhalation. So breathing in through your nose and out through your nose, and breathing in for maybe a count of 4, and then taking a pause, and then breathing out for a count of 8. And maybe everyone can just do it right now, but just doubling the length of that exhalation and pausing after the inhale and pausing after the exhale. And literally, it takes like 3 breaths just to slow down your nervous system and to create this feeling of presence and groundedness and safety in your body. It really does. The polyvagal theory,
Hmm.
as we've talked about it activates that ventral vagal portion of the vagus system. And so it really gives your mind and body a sense of peace and presence and ability to make a decision and to answer that question: what does my body need today? So that's really the most important part right there is just taking those foundational pieces, again, your preferences, where you're at right now, what you really want to do, and then ask what you want to do today based on your actual feeling of where your energy is, where your mood is, and all of that.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
was just going to say here, if you don't mind me, because this is beautiful. And so again, just someone, see, you can see why we're friends, you guys. By the way, drop a hello. If you're watching this live, I'd love to know who's here. Please drop a hello. And if you're watching the replay, do hashtag replay. I'd love to see who's watching this later. We will come back and answer questions as needed. But I love that, Brianne, and that, this is a practice that any woman can do for herself first thing in the morning, or at some, our body likes to be on some type of cycle. We're going to talk about that. We have to talk about that.
Yeah, we have to talk about that. We'll be quick.
Yeah. we like consistency. So first thing in the morning, this is what I've been doing recently, is just putting my hand on my heart. And I used to even militant meditation. Like I'd be like, oh, I have to meditate every morning, and I've even let that go to a degree. I still know I do well if I take time to be quiet, but just that 3 breaths, that inhale for 4, hold, exhale for 8, hold, and do that 3 times, then ask the question, what do I need today? What exercise would benefit my body today, or what food? I mean, you could answer any question, but I love that. You're getting your nervous system into a place we're receiving the right information from your internal space, your whatever you want to call that, is going to give you the information that's most beneficial for you in the moment.
Yeah.
Did I do okay summing that up? Okay.
Absolutely. You are asking your inner guru, you're asking your inner physical therapist, your inner fitness trainer, or your inner nutritionist if you're thinking about food. Really important. And it's kind of another little key point that I wanted to be sure to let y'all know is, although I think fitness trackers and like apps and fitness watches and heart rate monitors and all of those tools can be really, really helpful. It's really important to kind of know we're talking about knowing from the inside what we want to do that day and what would serve us the most that day for our own health. But it's kind of the same thing during your specific workout. If you choose to do something where maybe normally you'd use a fitness tracker or a fitness app or a heart rate monitor, it can be a good idea to actually ditch that at least every once in a while, so that you can really tune in and to know from the inside when to keep pushing yourself and when to back off. Yeah. Is that technology is beautiful, but sometimes we can use it to force us to keep going because we have to meet our goals. And that's not always what our body needs. It can actually be very counterproductive. Sometimes, exercise is a stress. And when we are overly stressed, it's a good stress, unless it gets past the point of being a good stress, and then it becomes a problematic stress, and it can actually increase cortisol and contribute even to weight gain if you're looking for weight management as part of your exercise journey.
This resonates with me, Brianne. I've recently started working out a little bit more. I've just witnessed my body needs that movement. I sit at a computer all day, and I've wanted to get back into movement just more regularly. I've neglected myself, I'll be honest, ebbs and flows in our lives. And I was watching a video, as you do, and the trainer is just like, it's a great workout, but she's like, keep going, you can do this. You push yourself to the limit, and you never know what you're capable if you don't just keep going, and I heard those words, and there was a part of me that's like, yeah, I'm just going to keep pushing myself. And then this inner pilot light within me went off and it was like, Beth, that's not what this is about. You're not here to burn yourself out. And when I do, I get dizzy. I know if I've overdone it, because when I get dizzy, I have dizzy spells more often and whatnot. And I stopped. And the trainer's like, you never know what you're capable. She's doing all this motivational mumbo jumbo. And I'm just sitting here, I'm like, no, that's not my truth right now. And that was like a huge epiphany for me when I was able to do that, because I was not always able to do that.
Yeah.
Right.
I hear you. Well, and I think, and the thing is, most of us watching this, maybe there's an exception, but most of us probably aren't training for the Olympics right now. We're not professional athletes. Right. We don't need to push ourselves. We don't need to do that. Maybe for someone who that is their job and they are training at a very high level, there's there's some issues there that have to be dealt with. But for the average woman, this is really, really important, is to tune in just like Beth did, and know when it is good, when you do want to push those limits, because that is good a lot. But sometimes it's just not. Like I told Beth actually before we got on, I was like, girl, I might get personal because that's just who I am. And so now I'm doing it, girl. I told you I would. I told you I might. I started my period today, and I have pretty bad cramps today, and it is just not a day. But I have a routine. I actually really need to move my body every day because of pain. If I don't, I get very, very stiff, a lot of back pain, and also for my mood. I have a history of anxiety and depression, and I really need to move my body for my mood. And so that's my why, which is another little hot tip, is to find your why for movement. For me, it's not about physical benefits as much. It's about my mind. It's about how I feel. And so I knew that I wanted to move today. And I knew that I chose a yoga practice that wasn't too intense. And I do love my yoga. But it was like a 45-minute video. And I wanted to do the whole thing, but I just was not in it. I was in pain. I was not feeling good. And I did what you did, Beth. I was like, okay, do I push through, or do I actually listen to my body here and say, no, it's actually going to serve me to just push stop at this point. I did about 20 minutes. We're going to call it good. And I wouldn't have done that in the past. I would have pushed through. I said I was going to do this yoga practice, and I'm a yogi, and that's what I do. And I would have pushed through, but I didn't. So we're both learning. And you can too.
Yeah, everyone. And I'm getting some great comments here. Even exercising at home is because, by the way, you guys, if you're leaving comments, I'm just looking now. This is great. Lots of comments coming in, lots of people really loving the conversation, but agreeing that even exercising at home has become an intimidation factor. Some people raising their hands to pelvic health being so important. Less intimidating thinking, movement over exercise. So somebody really resonated with that. So I'm just letting you know, like, really great.
Thank you.
This is resonating with people. So excellent guidance is resonating. Great, you guys. Thank you guys for your comments. Please keep on bringing them in. Let us know if you have any questions too. We're going to be getting to a Q&A towards the end of this conversation too. So please drop your questions when you have them, because we'll be able to address those while Dr. Brianne, she is an expert in her field. You guys just remember that. So feel free to ask her questions, and we'll be sharing more about how you can learn more about her here in a bit. So great.
Did I dive into the cycles real quick?
Yes, that's what I was gonna say.
Okay.
Let's talk about, and I want to hear too, because I know that there's women of all different ages in this group, and I work with women who are still, menstruating, and those who aren't, who have gone through menopause and whatnot. So yeah, tell us about seasons and cycles and how this plays a role in our movement prescription and intuitive movement. I can't wait. This is what I was actually most excited about talking about. So
yeah, it's really great. So I mean, there's seasons of a woman's life, and if you so I'm just going to say this one, but when I hear it, sometimes I'm like, oh, I don't like the sound of that. But it's actually very traditionally talked about as maiden, mother, and crone. I don't like the word crone, except for the fact that I like to think of crown, because I live in Germany, and it's actually Krone, I believe, in German, to say crown. But, I like to think of it as crown, like you are in your queen phase after you've gone through menopause. So the maiden is, your younger years. The mother is when you're, menstruating, you're fertile. And then the crone is after you've gone through menopause and you're no longer menstruating. But again, crone, crown. So those are the life stages of a woman. And there may be very, very different exercise needs at each one. So I, as a runner, was no problems running when I was a maiden. And as I became a mother, I developed prolapse because I went running because I was obsessed 3 weeks after I gave birth to my child. So that kind of interrupted things, but it's a perfect example of how your needs may shift and change. And it's not to say that you can't go back to running at all. It's just that you need to be aware and be a little more careful during these different life stages. So then crone or whatever, again, crown, there's definitely changes in hormones that happen after menopause. Obviously your hormones change quite a bit, and that can impact your exercise, what feels good for you for exercise, but it doesn't mean to stop moving by any means. And it's certainly, there are many women who are post-menopause or past menopause, and they are very, very active, extremely active, stronger than I am. And it's actually very important to keep your body strong with some weightlifting, moving, stretching. Flexibility is super important. So just keeping your life cycle in mind is important, and knowing that even if you were a hardcore HIIT person, runner, etc., whatever, when you were younger, you can still be super, super active at a different life stage, but it might look a little different, and that's okay. Like for me, my activities have adjusted significantly, but I'm still super active. So that's the first one. So as for the 28-day cycles for women who are still menstruating, although little caveat, women who are no longer menstruating, actually many will note, if they kind of take note of it, they do follow the moon as far as
Yes.
mood and energy levels. So that's something to really know. We are cyclical beings. We cycle with nature, and women especially, we really have this beautiful connection to the moon. I'm not going to get too much into it right now, but women who are no longer menstruating often feel a lot of energy and sometimes mood changes with the moon. So that's something to keep in mind. But the menstrual cycle, so the first part, let's call the first part our period. So when we're actually bleeding. So that is considered like our winter. This is the time when we want to actually, it's very good. Like for me, I told you, I just started my period today and I don't feel so good. And I used to push through. It did not matter what day of the month it was. Every day I was going to do my workout. But I've gotten past that. And that's a very, very good thing. Because if you don't listen to that, you just burn your body out. So the winter phase during your bleed, essentially, is when you want to really allow yourself that time to kind of rejuvenate. And it doesn't mean lay in bed all day necessarily, but it just means go gentle. Then the next phase is the follicular phase. And that's when your estrogen is really starting to rise. And a lot of people get a lot of good energy, and it can be a real good time to go for it. Now, if you're fighting adrenal fatigue and burnout, you want to be careful not to overdo too much too fast, because you kind of start feeling pretty darn good during that part after you've stopped bleeding and you're moving toward your ovulation time. So this is the spring, and this is like, I'm starting to feel really good. Just be careful not to push yourself too far and kind of go crazy with it, because then you could develop that weekend warrior issue. So that's the spring phase, but it is a good time to start doing a little more activity, a little bit more running or high intensity stuff, if that's what calls to you. Then ovulation is summer. So we had winter, follicular is spring, and then ovulation is summer. And for a lot of people, that is the hot, fiery time where they might be feeling really good. Now, everyone reacts a little differently to the cycle. So even though I say this like, oh, it's like this, it's not like this for everyone. A lot of people feel awesome when they ovulate. They feel very creative, very sensual. They feel strong. They want to connect and hang out with people and be communicative and all of that. Others feel pretty bad. That's me. I don't feel good when I ovulate, and I don't feel good when I have my period. I'm 40, and I'm definitely starting to notice some changes of perimenopause. And so I think that that's a lot to do with it, is I'm just noticing just changes. But for a lot of people, they do feel really good. And that can be a great time to go out and do some more intensive exercise. It's actually a very strong time for most people. But again, listen to your body. And then during the luteal phase, after ovulation, when you're preparing for your period, your progesterone is actually the more dominant hormone there, typically, until perimenopause, when it really falls. And in that time, that can be a time when you're starting to lose your energy a little bit. And so it's, again, kind of moving toward that time where you might want to move more into, you can still do some like strength training, Pilates, things like that, but maybe not so much the kickboxing class and the Zumba and the running. So when you are in a situation where you're not an Olympic level athlete that's needing to train constantly for something, when you're in the position that many of us are blessed to be in, where we can kind of create our own schedule, why not work with your body and like give it what it needs during this cycle when we don't have to push through? Maybe some of you are training for a marathon or something like that, and that's different. but you can still work with your cycle as you're training for things too. So, I mean, you still can, but I'm just saying that I know there's some situations where it's a little bit harder. But when you have the opportunity to work your own schedule, work it that way. So you're actually flowing with your body rather than against it, because honestly, don't fight against your cycle. It just makes things worse.
Oh my gosh, I love this conversation and the connection to, and I was introduced to this years ago, and I still think about it so much when I'm going through my monthly cycle, is that idea of seasons of the year. So like your spring is like right after you're done bleeding, that follicular phase. Ovulation is summer. I'm just recapping because I think this is
Yeah.
good to
Oh, and then I
review.
don't think I said that luteal is the fall. The luteal phase
Luteal
is
is the
the fall.
fall. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And you're
The
and that's
autumn.
usually when PMS is triggered, where we might feel some stronger emotions within, and,
Mm-hmm.
taking care of our body through those phases. And even if you're done menstruating, just witness, because you're still following a cycle. Like
Mm-hmm.
this is not disinformation for women who are bleeding every month, or, some women aren't bleeding every month. They have, dysregulated hormonal cycles. That doesn't mean you can't tune into your body and witness, okay, what's going on for me today? That's where I think that exercise that you brought in about just putting your hand on your heart, breathing,
Yeah.
you can really start to tune in and pick up on how your emotions, how your hormones are connecting into how you need to move your body for that particular day,
Mm-hmm.
or that particular season. And it's so interesting, Brianne. I thought of this while you were talking. It's like we're in springtime now. Depending on when you're watching the recording, it could be a very different season.
Yeah.
But I feel this, like with the summer sun, starting to come in, the leaves are starting to bud, and I think about like how much more energy I want to move my body just in this cycle of the year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the
Oh
year,
yeah.
I
That's
want
a
to be
whole nother cycle.
outside. Yeah, it's like a
Mm-hmm.
whole nother cycle. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like in winter, if you live in a place that has seasons, you might witness that your personal energy level, not just with your monthly cycle, your daily cycle, but even with the yearly cycle, might vary from season to season too. Like the types of movement that I participate in the spring and the summer look very different than the fall and the winter, when there's
Mm-hmm.
snow on the ground and it's getting dark early. So it's even more integrated, right? I don't know. I thought that was kind of a unique thing to draw in. Would you
No,
agree?
it's exactly right. And it kind of reminds me of the other thing I wanted to cover today, which was about consistency and like what to do if slash when, most likely when you fall off track. Because I think what can
Yeah.
happen, I think a lot of people can feel like they fall off track in the fall and winter, because it's harder to get outside, and it's maybe feel like you're more stuck inside. And so then you just feel like, well, what can I do now? Like I can't do anything. I'm stuck inside, you know? And that can be almost used it can be used as an excuse, or it can be used as an opportunity to see a whole new style of movement, because indoors can be such a beautiful time to explore yoga and different forms of dance. And again, just that fun, keeping in mind that investigative, exploratory thing that I said at the beginning, which, you're dating around, and maybe in different seasons, you might date different forms of movement, and that's okay. You can still move when you think about your why. You think about your why of why is it that you want to move your body? Is it for weight management? Is it for your mood? Is it for a health issue that you are dealing with? Like whatever it is, just make sure that it's something that truly is something that lights you up, and it's not for your doctor because your doctor said you had to because of a heart condition or something like that. I mean, that's a good reason, but maybe that doesn't actually light you up. Maybe what lights you up is thinking about playing with your grandkids. Maybe that's what lights you up.
Oh,
That's why I want
yeah.
to keep moving, is
Yeah.
for that reason. And so you just keep that in mind, even in the winter, even in the fall, when you're like, oh, I don't really want to do anything today. You say, well, I have a new opportunity to try something new, a different form of movement, a different style, something fun. We'll explore. Make it a game.
Yeah, I love that. And it's like, because that obstacle can come into mind where, oh, exercise or
Yeah.
movement has to look like this. Therefore, if the weather's crummy, I
Yeah.
can't do the thing. Therefore, I'm just going to stay in and watch TV, which, maybe during that winter phase of your cycle,
Yeah.
that's completely fine. I do that.
Yep.
And then there's other times where you really have to look at I love that, because I hear a lot of women that I speak with and that I work with say, I'm not really in it for, I don't want to get even to a smaller body. Their diet culture has a strong pull on us to be, oh, you do fitness and exercise to get into a smaller body. And most women are releasing that, like in this Facebook group, they're working on it, or they're open to it. So they're really looking at moving their body to feel good. And so this conversation is just a perfect opportunity to explore that and be like, if you've been indoctrinated by diet culture, which all of us have on some level, movement doesn't have to look like this picture perfect box, that you buy in a CD case, or now it's all online, a YouTube video. This is about you taking care of you for the reasons that are important to you, to play with your grandchildren, to live vitally and be able to. I have a woman I'm working with. She's like, I just want to go hiking in the mountains again. Like that's it. Like she just wants to explore and be in nature. So you have to kind of identify for yourself, what is it that it is truly important to you? Yeah. So I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because that helps you stay committed. When you have that, it's so easy to get excited about something, but to stay committed is a whole nother level. and I guess that's the other thing is, even though we're talking about this very fluid flowing idea of intuitive movement, that hopefully it has been, I've helped it come across clearly, because it is fluid, it is flowing. But at the same time, I am just such a fan of movement. My tagline is eat clean, move every day, shine brighter, because I just have seen the power firsthand of in my energy, my mood, my brain power, everything. When I do move my body, I feel so much better, and I've seen it change lives, but you do have to, there's an element of flow and beautiful intuition here, but then there is an element of commitment in order to make it happen, especially if it is a new habit for somebody that they're trying to get into.
Absolutely.
And so I think at some level, you do need to put it on the calendar, potentially schedule it so that it actually happens. And I had a friend once tell me, I just thought it was brilliant. She said, now I feel like I'm going to get it wrong, but I think it was flexibility in plans. Like, structure is important, but rigidity is not what we want. She was saying flexibility in plans is how you don't quit on yourself. And I think that's so important. It's important to have a plan, but having flexibility within that plan is how you don't just give up, because it can be so easy to be like, oh my gosh, it's been a week and I totally did it for like 2 days and now I haven't, and it's been a week. I guess I can't do this, And so it's remembering that maybe you didn't do your morning workout or your morning movement the way you thought you would, or maybe something came up. Well, the next, you either move it to an evening movement session. That's okay. Just move it to a different time of day. Still do it though. Or if you do fall off track for what you wanted to do, what your plan was, then you just get back on the horse. So it's not about how many times you fall off, it's how quickly you get back on. And so just continuing to remember that even though this is a fluid, flowy, heart-based, feminine practice, there is an element of discipline when you're creating a new habit. So we can't forget that.
Yeah. And it also goes into a mindset. I always tell people, well, not always, but I often remind women, look for the evidence of what is working.
Yeah.
Looking at the evidence of what is not. So easily our minds can get pulled into a habit of thought or a web of thoughts that just kind of pull us down the rabbit hole of, oh, I missed my workout, therefore I'm not going to be fit. And, I'm just going to go ahead and hang out on the couch and just not do anything. And then I'm going to feel bad about myself because I'm not doing anything. You see how like this web of thoughts, like it starts with one thought, I didn't do it today. And it's that habit of self-destructive thinking that can pull us into this space of, oh, it means we can't do it. So instead of looking for that evidence, we have to catch ourselves in those thought patterns and say, you know what, I'm going to choose differently tomorrow and look for what is working. You know what, it didn't work today. Self-compassion, it's all good. I'm going to try again tomorrow. And I'm going to look for the ways of movement. Maybe there's a reason it's not working for you, because the exercise plan that you picked, thinking that it was the right thing for you, just isn't right for you.
Yeah.
So, okay, this is just evidence that I'm going to look for something new. Like maybe instead of saying I'm going to do 30 minutes of weightlifting tomorrow, because that's quote unquote good for me and I might make me feel good, I'm actually just going to explore doing some hip circles. I'm going to pull up one of Dr. Brianne's hip circle videos, which she
Mhm.
has mini hip circle videos that
I
are
do.
super
I
fun.
do.
Check out our YouTube video, Fem Fusion Fitness. But pulling up something that's a little bit more gentle to get into the
Yeah.
way. And so we can find evidence of things that do work for us. So it's, are things happening to us? Or are they happening for us? And whenever I find that I fail and I don't quote unquote do what I thought I was going to do, I ask myself why.
Yeah.
Why, and how can I let this be a lesson for me, to do something different moving forward? And that's kind of following your intuitive guidance on some level.
Yep, absolutely. And if you are following your intuitive guidance, then you won't be falling off as much as you would otherwise anyway. So we're automatically kind of a leg up right there because we are following our own intuition and we know, hey, maybe this wasn't falling off track. This was just the rest day that I needed because I'm in my winter or whatever it is. Like this wasn't falling off track. Like I'm all good. I'm just gonna
Yes.
keep going with my plan tomorrow because I'm listening and tuning in. And again, what do I have energy for today? What does my body need today?
Yeah.
um yeah, because we're just accepting ourselves as we are and designing that new identity moving forward.
I love it. And we have a question, Brianne. Do you
Yeah.
have a minute for a question?
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
so some people saying just flexibility is huge, otherwise it feels like rules. Yes.
Yeah,
Preach.
we are anti-rule here. I mean,
I
again,
know.
it's good to have some basic knowledge, but we're anti-rule. Absolutely, we're freedom lovers.
Yes. Yeah. There's some great. So here's a question. So, thinking about returning to a movement activity that I used to enjoy, tennis is for example, but physically struggle with right now due to lack of endurance and flexibility. How do you recommend approaching that? So, she wants to do something like tennis. She wants to play tennis because she has probably good memories and her body likes it. How do you recommend approaching that so she can get to that tennis playing
I'm getting all
space?
excited. This is my
Yeah.
jam. This is like what this is what I love. So you have to start to learn how to be your own little investigative detective, essentially. You could always work with somebody who's an expert in tennis on this, I'm sure. But what I would recommend to you is actually break down the tennis, break down because I'm actually not much of a tennis player, so I don't really know. But when you think of the sport of tennis, which is what you love, this is beautiful, following your intuitive guidance about what you want to do. You're exploring your preferences and you're saying, yes, tennis, let's get back to it. So then you are aware now of your cycle. Your season is maybe you haven't done it in a while. So we need to ease into it rather than do the weekend warrior thing and just like jump in. So you break down the game of tennis into its components. So you think of, okay, well, I'm not a tennis player, but you're got to build up your endurance, right? So what I would suggest is before going out and necessarily playing a full set, if you will, I think that's the right word, on the court, you would want to work in maybe some walking, even some speed walking, maybe get your endurance up by working in some walking. You'd want to work on some core. That would be my recommendation. And your big why for why you're doing this core work is not because you want to do crunches or whatever. It's because you're getting back to tennis. And I do know from the little bit of tennis I've played, there's a lot of core there. So you want to safely work your core. And that's my jam. So if you need help safely working your core and making sure your pelvic floor is safe, I can, help you with that. But do some core work. You'd want to, maybe bring in some drills that are very, very simple drills, like maybe, some side to side kind of like, even if you're just doing it while you're watching TV or something, just kind of going back and forth like this. Maybe you could even do like some swinging type things, just breaking it down and making it fun and working it into your day in tiny, tiny pieces. And then you can work up to a game, but breaking it down first is really, really important. I'm doing this in my group that I run, which is we're breaking down running right now for people who want to get back into running, but who have prolapse or bladder leakage. So we are breaking this down so that people can, before they go on an interval run, they've got the foundation.
Oh, that's so awesome. There was something that came to me. I think you just kind of answered the question, but I love the idea of breaking it down. And something I've heard from you, Brianne, is movement snacks. So
Yes.
sometimes people like, instead of thinking you have to do like 30 minutes at a time of exercise, like what movement snacks can you incorporate? And I loved you got up and
Yeah.
showed us, what kind of movements are you using in tennis? What kind of core function. And I will tell you guys, if you are looking for, we're going to share something that Brianne is offering for anybody who does, want to explore more about intuitive movement. She has lots of different resources that you can access. But, going to her YouTube channel is a great first step. And then she's also got an amazing program to help women through, like you said, with especially those who have like pelvic floor issues, get back into movement by breaking it down like this and seeing that there's another way to do this without, just jumping back into the game and then hurting yourself and feeling like a failure and all that. I got some other comments, Brianne. So that was a really great question. The rabbit hole struggle is real. All or nothing thinking, believing there is value in all movement is something that this particular person needs to work on. And then I like to think of any movement as incremental. One never fails. Each incremental activity achieved adds up to the next one. So it adds to what you're saying.
Absolutely.
There are never, yeah. Okay, great. No, this is awesome. So, we are coming up to an hour, and I know that everybody's time is precious, including Brianne's. It's evening for her. She needs to get back with her family. But Brianne, can you tell us about you're doing amazing things always. So, just go to femfusionfitness.com, find her on YouTube. You can find Brianne, you can type in Lady Bits, and you can find her book that she's written. It's an amazing book on women's health. So, but you also have an amazing program called Lift. Can you just tell us about that and how it can help women with this intuitive movement piece if they are looking for more support?
Yeah, absolutely. And so Lift is designed, it's a program that I designed for myself, actually. I didn't know at the time I was designing a program that would be offered to other people. But when I developed my own mild prolapse after I had my son, I actually was going through all of the training to specialize in pelvic floor physical therapy at that time. And so I had all the tools at my fingertips. It's beautiful the way the world works. I developed this issue as I was going through the training to help my clients. And so I actually wasn't really that concerned. I had to advocate for myself because my midwife didn't believe I actually had an issue, but I did. And so I just took the tools, lifestyle modifications. So learning how to move my body correctly as far as literally transitioning from sit to stand, lifting things, holding my posture, positioning myself to go to the bathroom. We're talking basics, but it's stuff we're never taught in school. So that information plus specific exercises and a progression in a specific manner. I took this and basically did it again without even realizing that I would share it with other people one day. And ultimately I did package it up and create a course from it. So this is called Lift. And it's a beautiful program that is, it's my baby. It's my signature offering. So I have that, and anybody here is welcome to join in. And actually, I think a very cool place to start, if you were curious about getting started with Lift, a cool place to start is through my Elevate course. And I have kind of like a hint, like a special little secret to tell people. So my Elevate course is all about heightening the mind-body connection. So it's really a beautiful starting place for this intuitive movement. Because I guess I don't really specifically speak to intuitive movement in Lift. I definitely encourage people that they are the experts of their body. We're giving them the awareness of their body, the information about their body, and I'm telling them that they need to know their own limits, and here's how. But in order to really develop that relationship and that feeling of safety, my Elevate course is really lovely for that. It's a very simple $27 introductory course. It's got guided meditations that will help you connect in to even your pelvic area and relax and get to know your body. Plus, it's coupled with daily workouts that are pelvic floor friendly that go with these 7 days of meditation. So it's a 7-day experience. It's got journal prompts, meditations, and workouts, movement practices each day. So it's a really great way to get started just on this sort of type of practice. And I know that I can give you a link, Beth, for your people. So I love Elevate, but here's my secret hint is that if you are curious about Lift, if you were to get that Elevate course, there's a special little offer that I send in the emails afterwards where you can get a deal. Basically, you get Elevate for completely free. So there's no, you're not you get it for free if you do this offer that you'll receive in the email sequence that comes along with it. So you could get essentially 2 programs for the price of 1.
That's
I hope that
amazing.
wasn't too
Thank you.
confusing.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, I was looking away only because I was trying to drop the links to the programs to those who are watching live so they can access it right away if they just want to take a peek and explore. I'll also be sending out this information as well as a 15% off coupon code for Lyft in an email following this. I'll probably post it in the group too, just so everybody has access. Not everyone's on my email list, and I know that shouldn't be something to stop you from getting access to Brianne and her programs and that discount, the 15% off, if you are interested in, especially if you have pelvic floor concerns. I mean, Brianne is your girl. Like, there is no question in my mind. I don't say this because she's my best friend. I say this because she is an expert. So she really does. She has helped hundreds, if not thousands upon thousands of women through her YouTube channel, through her book, through her program. She's really a delight to work with in terms of what you get, the value of her program. I have told her over and over she needs to increase the price because she is so freaking valuable, but she's kept the price very accessible for women who need this help. So take her up on it before she does increase her prices, because she absolutely could, because she's just amazing. Yeah, someone said this was excellent. Okay, Mike, get off the couch or step away from the computer. I'm actually wearing my workout top today because this interview is early for me. I just dropped off my daughter at her sitter and jumped onto this interview, and I like to move my body in the morning too. So I'm in my summer phase of my cycle, and so I'm ready to go move my body and get outside. It's going to be 80 degrees here today. And
you're so lucky. It is not where I am. It's cold. And I was going to say, if you get into this and you start loving your movement as much as I do, then you might end up being like me. And pretty much, this is my fancy outfit. It's a sweater right now, but this is a sports bra underneath, probably pretty obviously sports bra. And I've got jogging pants on the bottom. So unfortunately, once you get into movement and you start wanting to move all day long, you kind of start dressing like this.
Me too. I've got my yep.
You might never get out of your workout clothes.
Yep. I don't wear anything restrictive anymore. People are like, oh yeah, I feel like I'm lazy if I'm just wearing stretchy pants all day and I'm not taking care of myself. I'm like, oh, my best form of self-care is wearing clothes that fit and that are comfortable and feel good in movement, because then I can just stop, drop, and do a downward facing dog.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah. It's so easy. You have no excuse. If you're wearing the right clothes, comfortable clothes, then you can just move any way you want anytime. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I really I try to find high style fitness clothes, just because I want to be able to move my body at a drop of a dime. It's important to me. So Brianne, this is amazing. Are there any last final thoughts that you want to share with those who are watching either live or the replay before we jump off here?
Okay, one more quick thing, and it is about the heart connection. So when we tuned in and we asked our heart, I'm going to tell you that I have a theory that we actually have 4 brains. So we have a brain. Yeah, I haven't talked to you about this, Beth. We have a brain. We have a gut brain, and that's, we have the enteric nervous system. These are all legitimate things here. So brain and a gut brain. Then we have all that huge electromagnetic field around our heart. This is our feeling brain right here. So we have our brain and our gut brain, we have our heart brain, and then we have our root brain. So that's at the base, like the root of our body, our pelvic bowl, our pelvic floor, our womb area, reproductive areas, organs, even, for men too. But women, we're very, very, very intuitive. And there's a lot of feelings. There's actually a lot of emotions stored in the hips and pelvic floor area. So it can be very helpful to tune in on your heart brain. But also, if you are comfortable and you want to think about it, maybe sometimes at night before bed, it can be a nice time to tune into your root brain too, and actually put your hands on your root, just literally on your pelvic area, wherever, it doesn't matter. But just literally just put your hand there and just breathe into it and ask that part of your body too what it wants and it needs as far as movement or anything. But it's really powerful. So I thought I'd just maybe leave people with that. It's a little out there, but my Lift program doesn't really talk too much about that, but Elevate speaks to it a little bit, the different layers. And once you get into this, and open your mind to it. It's amazing how our body is always talking to us. And so it's really just a
Mhm.
matter of learning how to listen, and different people will respond differently to tuning in to different parts of their body. I just encourage you to not let this brain be the only one that you're listening to when it comes to intuitive movement and guidance for what you should be doing, because this is going to give you the should. The brain is going to give you the should every time, but your heart brain, even your gut brain and your root brain will give you the actual truth of what you need to be doing.
Ah, I love you, Brianne. You're speaking that. You're speaking that talk. I love the root brain. I've had a conversation with another pelvic health physical therapist. I worked with one for a while. I had that. Is it diet? What did I have, Brianne?
Diastasis recti.
Diastasis.
Diastasis recti, diastasis recti, said differently, where
Yeah, like the
depending on where you are.
muscles were not like connected because I, carried a baby and all that. And she was helping me through that, and she did the same thing. She said the same thing. She's like, "That's where your wisdom is." So
Yeah,
you're telling me again, and I know. I mean, you talk about this on your podcast and some of your
yeah,
different channels as well on YouTube and whatnot. But there's this intelligence. The idea here is that there's intelligence in our body, and
yeah,
so many of us live up here in our logical brain, and we tell ourselves a lot of stories that might not actually be true, and in
yeah.
many cases are not true. It's all an illusion. So when we get back in touch with our other brains, and I love the addition of the root brain. I talk about the heart and the gut brain, but when we start to get in touch with those different brains, we can actually discover things about ourselves that really inspire that joy and that love that we're all on this planet. It's our birthright to receive and be able to experience, but we can really tap into that more deeply when we are listening to those other brains of the
Yeah.
body.
Yep.
And then just because I have trauma informed training in my background, I think it's important. Sometimes it can feel unsafe to tap into the body, right? To feel
Mhm.
into the body, to experience emotion through the body. And if that's you, and if it feels like weird, like I don't think I'd feel safe, putting my hand on my pelvic bowl or even on my heart, because there's trauma there. There's memories that are not comfortable. Work with somebody who in your area who's a somatically trained therapist who can help you access these areas of your body. This is something you likely need to do on a one-on-one basis. There's exercises you can learn online, but really working with someone who's trained in this, if you do have trauma as part of your story, can be helpful if you have a hard time getting into those areas of your body. Sorry, I just have to say that because it's part of my training, because I
No,
know
it's very, very
watching.
important. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yep. Yep.
yeah. So root brain. Oh, someone's a part of. So
Root
one of my
brain.
other, yeah, part is she teaches my those who are in my private group coaching. She teaches them EFT. We use
Oh, good. Yeah.
tapping, and she's amazing. So she's like, yay, root brain.
Root
Yeah.
brain.
So she loves that. And another couple people said root brain as well. They love that. So
Okay,
hey, it
good. Good.
resonated. It was beautiful.
Yeah, we can all do it.
Yes.
Well, I'm so grateful that you gave me this opportunity to share my love with your people. So
For
thanks everyone
real.
for watching, and thank you, Beth.
Yes, yes. So I'm just going to shut this down. So everyone who's watching, I'm just dinking around on my computer trying to find the screen where we're live right now. I have no idea.